Alright, so this video is a tutorial on how to use the Divi theme. If you haven't installed and configured the Divi theme yet, check out my video on how to do that. I'll link to that down below. And in this video, I just want to show you guys how to start building with the Divi theme and sort of maybe demystify it a little bit. It's pretty easy when you understand the basic concepts of how the builder works, but I can see how it might be a little bit confusing if you're brand new to building websites and if you're brand new to the Divi theme. So just go ahead and dive in and let's start building a page and I'll show you how everything works. Okay, so this here is the small splash page that we're going to be creating. It's just a page, kind of a placeholder until we get our final home page built. It's just a really simple page, and I just like to put in all of the basic, most important information about your business or just about what your website's about right here on this little splash page, which is going to be a placeholder, as I said, until we get our home page created. So to get started making a new page in Divi, just go ahead and head over to your dashboard. You're probably already at your dashboard, but you can just click on your site name up here and then dashboard to go back to your dashboard. Okay, and then here we are on our dashboard. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're going to create a new page. So you can go to Pages, Add New, and then give this page a name. I'm just gonna call it Welcome. And now what we're looking at here is sort of the back-end standard WordPress editor. This is normally where you'd create content and add content. The problem with WordPress editor is there aren't a lot of options as far as designing your pages. And that's why there are page builders, and that's why we're using the Divi Builder. The Divi Builder gives us a lot more flexibility in designing our pages. Now, I just want to point out a couple of things about the WordPress editor in case you were using it for your blog posts. Although you can also use the Divi Builder for your blog posts, but if you want to use the standard WordPress editor, click on this toolbar button and that's going to add a lot more design settings here that you can use. Over here we've got the save draft. You can either do a save draft or you can choose to schedule your page or post to come up later by just clicking this edit button and then deciding on a date. We have our page attributes here. So later on we're going to be changing this to a blank page, which is going to remove the header, sort of the menu area, and it's going to remove the footer. But I'm going to show you what it looks like without that and then show you what it looks like after we change that. And then if you're using a blog post, you'd set your featured image here, and it's going to be sort of the default image for that blog post. So those are sort of the basics of the WordPress editor, but let's dive in and just start using the Divi editor, because that's what we're here for. So to start using the Divi editor, you simply click on the Use the Divi Builder button here, and then it opens up the Divi Builder. Now this is the classic back-end builder. So this is a graphical representation of what your page looks like. So we're saying here is what they call sections, which are the blue areas. The green areas are rows, and these rows can be divided into various different size columns. You can also add a specialty section, and that's going to allow you to have content sort of, in this case here, it's going to be 50% is all going to be this long content here, and then on the left-hand side, you have the choice of adding a half column or quarter columns, and you can keep varying that up along the side here. So if you had like a big piece of content, like say all of your blog posts or your blog posts about one category on this side, or a very large image or something like that, you might want to use the specialty section. And it can be also used as a way of adding a sidebar to a page if you wanted to do that. So that's what the specialty section is, but let's dive in and start using the Visual Builder, because that's what I love about Divi and that's what makes Divi so exciting. So to use the Visual Builder, you just simply click on the Use Visual Builder button. And that's going to take us to the front end of our website, or a front end view of our website, where we can actually start editing and building our pages. Now, this is a brand new install of the Divi theme. I've just gone through, and as I've shown in how to customize and install the Divi theme video, I've modified my default color palette just to make it a little bit faster for designing pages, and I've modified the typography on this install, but basically everything is pretty much the same. And if you haven't seen that video, definitely check that out. There's some good tips to help you start building your pages faster by just doing a few things to configure the Divi theme. Now, I didn't add in a custom logo here, but had I, it would show up here. So what we're seeing here is we're seeing that same graphical representation of our web page, but we're seeing it here as boxes that you can highlight, you can click on, and then we can get to all the settings for those boxes. So if I wanted to adjust the settings for the section, I click on the gear icon. If I wanted to duplicate the section, you click on duplicate. You can also save sections. So if you've designed a section here and you want to save it to your library because you want to use that repeatedly on your website, you can do that here. And of course we can trash the section. And we can close out of this box by clicking on the X button. You do the same thing here for the rows. We can get to the row settings, so we can decide what layout we want to use by clicking on that button there. And we have all the same controls here. And then if we wanted to add a new module, so we wanted to add a text, for example, we'd choose our column structure. So for this, I'm going to choose 50-50, and then we'd add a new module. And what's great about the Divi theme is that you can just scroll down to look for the module, or you can just type it in here. And I love this aspect of using the Divi Builder. It just makes getting to what you need so much faster once you learn what the names are of all the modules. So that text module pops up, and we can start adding in text. I'm gonna make this an H1 tag. And before we modify this any farther, I just wanna keep going with the orientation of how the Divi Builder works. Now, this button down here is sort of the main controls for the overall builder and the main controls for your overall page. So if you want to adjust settings for the entire page, you can click on this gear icon here. That's going to give you control over the background for the entire page, the design elements for the entire page if you wanted to have a custom color palette just for this page because you're doing a special design or a special landing page, for example, and you had a slightly different color palette, you can add that in here so you can build your page faster by already having that color palette installed. Adjust the spacing, and then you can choose what the default colors are going to be for the text for this page. Actually, want to make this just black here for that. So there's that. Now, if you wanted to save this page to use this layout later, you can export it here. You can also import a page using this button. And then this is the history of all of the changes that you've made to your web page. Divi saves the history, and it does some auto-saving of your page as you're creating it. Definitely recommend, though, clicking either the Save Draft button if you're in draft mode or the Publish button to keep your saves consistent as you're working on your page. I like the fact that they have the auto-save feature. I don't fully trust it, so I'd rather use that as an emergency backup and just remember to save continually. You can close out of this. And if you wanted to load from your library, you can click this plus button. And then over here on the left-hand side, we've got some additional controls, some additional ways of viewing this page. So we can view it as a tablet, so we can get a sort of preview idea of what our site might look like on a tablet and on a smartphone. You can go back to the desktop view. You can also zoom out to see sort of a wide view of your entire page. And then this here brings up that graphical representation like we have on the back end, right here on the front end that's really quick to get to. Now I use this sometimes because sometimes when you have slightly more complicated setups and you've adjusted the padding or the margin on your page so that these boxes here wind up lining up on top of each other, it can be difficult to click on the gear icon if this gray box happened to line up underneath this box. So sometimes what I do is if I'm having that issue, I just click on this button here, and that just sort of spreads everything out into this wireframe view where I can easily get to the setting I need to, and then after adjusting it, I can just click back and go back to the front end view. And then the last button here is this 3 dots here, which controls the way that the builder works and way that it runs. So you can turn off the animations, you can decide whether you want it in click mode, hover mode, which is where you hover over it and hover over anything and the buttons pop up. Click mode, you hover over it and just the gray box pops up, and then until you click on it, then all of the settings pop up for the modules. And then grid mode keeps all of the modules up all the time. So in this demonstration, we're going to be using click mode, and then let's close out of this. So this is that's the basic layout of how the Divi Builder works. Let's go ahead and start building this page, and I'll show you how to build a page using the Divi Builder. So I've added this specialty section here, so I just want to remove that. Just click on this, click on the trash icon to get rid of that. And now the first thing I like to do when I'm working with a section, if I already know what I want the background to be, to just add in the background image or something close to the color of the background that I want to add if I already know what I want my background to be. That just makes it easier to design the page, and you can sort of fix things as you go along and see what colors you need to make the background stand out against the text that you're adding. Let's go ahead and add in a background. Okay, so since we're in click mode, just hover over the section that you want to activate and then click. Then click on the gear icon here to add a background. And I've already uploaded and optimized these images, and I'll put a link down below into how I optimize images. Basically what I do is I use Photoshop, and I reduce the size of the image just down to the size that I need. So in this case here, since I'm having a full width background, I made the width of it about 1200. and then I just let the height be whatever the height was for that image. And then I compressed down the image as much as I could so that it would load as quickly as possible without degrading the quality a little bit too much. I tend to favor slightly more image quality degradation so that my image loads faster rather than having like a perfectly crisp image, which I don't think, especially for a background, is not really all that important. It's much more important that my site loads quickly. Okay, so now that we've added this background in here, you just want to make sure that all the settings that you want, if you've adjusted the settings here to full size to one of these other sizes, sometimes it might default to that. So just make sure you have the size of the image that you want. And if you want to optimize your images, you want to add the alt text, you do that right here before you add in the image is the easiest way of doing it. And then you click on upload image. And there we go. Now we've got this image as the background, and we're going to be able to see how it looks compared to our text. So I really like to do that. Okay, so there we go. Now we've got the background image added in. Let's go ahead and close this window. Let's go back to adjusting this text. So I want to make this text a heading 1, which I did here. And now let's change the design. Now you can change the design here using the WordPress Visual Builder, but I prefer to try to be consistent and just use the design settings from the Divi Builder. So to do that, we go over to Design. And then if this was regular text, we'd click on the text row here. But since this is a heading text, we'll click on the heading text here. And then it was an H1 tag that I added. And so it's showing our search engines that this is the most important title on this page. So let's change the alignment here to center. And then let's change the text color here to white. And let's make this size a little bit bigger. Let's make it about 60 there. And then we've got, if you have multiple lines of text and you want to adjust, say, the letter spacing, you can do that here, or the line height, which we're not going to be able to see, you can do that here. You can also add a drop shadow to the text, and you can change how far or close it is. And then if you want to reset any settings, you just click this little reset button here. I'm going to remove the drop shadow because I'm not going to use it in this case. And we've got our sizing and spacing options down here. And you can also animate anything. If you wanted to animate this text in, you could do that. Okay, let's go ahead and click the checkbox here. Now, one of the other great things about the Divi theme is that you can edit the text inline. So if you just click on it, and then highlight the text, you can then use the little paint bucket here to change the color of just this one set of letters here. So I'm going to change this bar to this bright yellow color. That's what the logo of this business is the grade is in white and then the bar is in yellow. And then in this case here, since I can't reach the top of this, you can push the escape key. Another great thing about the Divi Builder is that there's a lot of keyboard shortcuts. And if you ever want to know what the keyboard shortcuts are, you can just push the question mark button on your keyboard and it'll show you all of the keyboard shortcuts. So the ones I use most commonly are, of course, the escape button to escape out of an editing mode, and then, of course, the Command Z button to undo. But of course, there's a lot of other very useful shortcuts that you can use, and as you get better at using a Divi Builder, you can start learning more of these keyboard shortcuts. Okay, so let's now add some more information about our restaurant here. So I'm just going to click on the module, add the plus icon, type in text. And then again, go back to design. And now since we're using text, we're going to use the text editor. Now you have a choice of either changing the text color down farther on these settings, or I can just change it to light since I've already made my light color white. We can keep scrolling down. Depending on which font you're using, you can change the font weight. Let's make the text size a bit bigger. I'm gonna make it 25. And then I'm gonna center this text. There we go. Let's add another text box down below this. We'll have our hours in this text box. And we'll just adjust these settings one more time real quick. Okay, and then the final module that we're going to add on this page is an email opt-in form. And now Divi's got an email opt-in form built right into the page builder. You can also use the Bloom plugin, which comes as part of the Elegant Themes subscription. And so you can use that here. And the Bloom plugin adds a lot of additional functionality. You can have pop-ups, all sorts of different ways of displaying it. But for this, we're just going to use the very basic email opt-in form that comes with the Divi Builder. Okay, so I'm going to click on this, click on the plus, and then just type in email to get the email opt-in form. And let's just go ahead and change this background color. So to do that, we click on the background button, and then click on the paint bucket icon here, and then click on the gear icon. I can change it to this dark blue, and I'm actually gonna make this dark blue a little bit darker here, just like this. And we can actually change the transparency of this so we can see a little bit of our background there. Let's go ahead and do that by sliding the transparency slider down, something like this. And I already know that I'm gonna add another transparency back behind here to make this text easier to read, and we'll do that in just a moment. Now, I'm not gonna set it up on this, but you do need to decide which email provider you're using for your newsletter. And so we've got a bunch of different options here, and it has all of the instructions on how to install it. I use MailChimp because it's free to get started with, but I haven't added it in here. But if you did want to add in MailChimp or whatever your other provider is, select the provider and then click the add here, and then you add in whichever account information you need, either your API key or your login and username. And then you can decide here what you want your success action to be. So if after they signed up and joined your mailing list, you can have it just display a message, and in this case it's going to say success. Or you can have this form take them to another URL. That could be useful if you're offering some sort of a bonus for signing up for your email mailing list. Okay, so let's go ahead and check out of this. Perfect. So now let's make this text a little bit easier to read by adding an additional background layer to this background. I'm going to add that cool sort of slash look. So to do that, we're going to click on the main section here where it's highlighted in blue. Click on the gear icon to get back to the background settings. Click on background, and then we're going to add in a gradient. I'm going to change these colors here. So I'm going to make it that dark blue again. And I'm going to make this white. It actually doesn't matter because I'm just going to make this 100% clear. And then to make this gradient visible, we need to scroll down here to the bottom and then click on this button here which says place gradient above background image. There we go. So now we're seeing the gradient. And then we need to adjust the start position to get that sharp line. And I want this to be about 55. And then this can be anywhere below 55 to get the sharp line here. And then we'll change the gradient direction. Get that cool slash look. And then let's adjust the transparency of this first color. So click on that color and then bring the transparency down to the level that you want it. So I'm going to go with about something like this. Then click on check. And there we go. So that's looking pretty good. Now let's just since we're making this a splash page and sort of like a temporary landing page until we get our final home page built, let's go ahead and remove the menu bar at the top and the footer section at the bottom. So to do that, we're going to save our draft. We're going to click on Edit Page. And then we're going to change the template here to blank. And that's going to remove the header section, and that's going to remove the footer. And then we can save draft. And then let's just view this to just get one last look before we publish it. There we go. That's looking pretty good. Now, the one thing is we do have this white space down here, and that's because we haven't made this section here full height. So let's just do that real quick. Now, we do need to add a tiny bit of code, but it's really easy, and I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. So let's go to Enable Visual Builder so we can see the changes as we're making them. Okay, and then let's click on this gear icon here, click on Advanced, Custom CSS, Element Settings, and we just want to set the minimum height. So you do min-height, colon, 100 VH, and so that means 100% view height or 100% of the height of the window. So what this code is saying is basically make the minimum height of this section 100% of the viewport height, as they call it, or the height of the window. And then you want to add a semicolon in after that, and then click the check box. And then we'll click on the three little dots down here, click Save Draft. And then let's just preview this one more time by exiting the Visual Builder. And there we go. So now we've got this window here full height. There's no menu. There's no way for our viewers to navigate anyplace else but this page. And it's got the most important basic information about our business right here. So it's a great way to start your website is with a page like this. So now let's do the last step that we need to do, and that is to make this page our home page so that when visitors go to our URL, it will land them on this page here. Okay, so in order to do that, we need to publish this page. So click on Enable Visual Builder, that'll work. And then click on the 3 dots here and then click Publish. It's going to publish this page and make it a page that's available. And then let's exit the Visual Builder. And let's click on, we can either do this from the dashboard or we can do it from the Theme Customizer. So let's go ahead and do it from the Theme Customizer. So click on Theme Customizer. And we want to go to Home Page Settings here. And we want to go to the welcome page that we just created. And click Publish. So now when visitors go to our URL, they're going to be greeted with this splash page with the basic information about our website. Now if you wanted to have a special page devoted to the posts that you created, you just want to create a new page, call it Posts Page, doesn't matter what you call it, publish it, you don't have to put any text on it or anything at all, and then just set that to your post page. So now you'll have a home page and a post page. WordPress defaults to being a blogging format, and so if you don't do anything, it's automatically going to create a page with a sidebar and add in any posts that you have as the home page of your website. So this is how you'd make the home page of your website something else other than the post page. Okay, so we've got a first page built with the Divi theme. I hope you guys found this tutorial helpful. And if you want more web design tutorials with the Divi theme, I've got a whole series where I'll walk you through various different design techniques and various different page builds with the Divi theme and show you guys exactly how to do that. And I'll link to that in the description below. If you want to cheat, if you want to sort of jump ahead and like start building pages faster, I'll show you guys how to use web design templates, and I'll link down below to some free web design templates that you can use with the Divi theme. And I'll link to the video on how to use those web design templates at the end of this video. If you found this video helpful, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. If you didn't find it helpful, give me a thumbs down, but tell me why, because I really want to make better videos for you guys, and I want to help you guys get your website started the right way. And if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial.